What we have done in the earlier classes is we have created a service, we have created a OData project. As part of it, we have created an entity called bank, entity set called banks, and we have generated the runtime artifacts. And in the runtime artifacts, we looked at model provider class extension, data provider class extension. And as part of the data provider class extension, we have implemented couple of methods. One is banks underscore get entity set, and the other one is banks underscore get entity method. Today we will see uh, how to create an entity, how to update an entity, and how to delete an entity. Okay, so by this session we will complete all the CRUD operations of a simple entity. Okay. I go to the data provider class extension. So I come here to the create entity, banks underscore your entity set name underscore create underscore entity method. This is the method we want to redefine in order to create an entity. Okay. So I go to the edit mode. Okay. So if you see here, there are lots of import parameters and there is um, an exporting parameter too. Okay, let's see. I mean, I'm not going to code anything. I simply what I will do is I will just activate it. Let's see what will happen. Okay, so I will keep a breakpoint here. I mean, I did not do anything. I mean, I did not code. I just redefined the method. Okay, let me go ahead and test it. Let me first read. Okay, read an entity, and you know the how to read an entity by key of the entity. Let me just read it in the JSON format. If you look at it, I mean, this is the entity information that you receive. Okay. Right. Okay. Let me just read it from. When I request data in the JSON format, okay, so this is the information that you receive whenever you request a bank's entity, right? So you will see the metadata here, and as part of the metadata you will see URL to get this entity, and you will see all the properties that you defined as part of this entity, right? So the outer curly braces represent it is a JSON object, and this D, this part represents the total payload that you receive from the server. Okay. So what I will do here is, whenever I create it, I need to pass all that information back to the service, because I wanted to create a bank with all the information, right? So just use as a request. You will see the button here, use as a request. Okay. Either you can enter all this information, or just take one of the entity and change all the property information that you as you like. Okay. I'm not passing any metadata, so I'm just deleting it. Okay. So if you see the entity here, the outer curly braces represent it is a JSON object. This D and inside represents it is the total information that you are passing to the uh, OData service. Okay. In the header, you are representing that you are sending information to OData service in the JSON format. Okay. Character UTF-8 indicates it the encoding that you are using. Okay. So I'm going to change the information. Okay. So if you see, it is in 9 characters. So I'll just put some information here. Okay. Let's say I'm going to create a bank with key 1000. I'm just passing some dummy information. State NY, country US, bank number, it is the same thing. Branch, Manhattan branch. Routing number, let's say something like, let's see, let's say the routing number property. So it is basically 15 characters, so I just passed some 5 or 10 characters, that's all right. Okay, created by user 17. Okay. Okay. Basically, this created date, how it calculates is after a certain date. Let's say if it is created today, right? If it is created today, the value it calculates is after 9070, how many milliseconds it is going to be. Today, don't worry about it, but going forward, I will explain how the time being calculated. If you see here, these are the number of milliseconds after 1970 and some date. Okay. Uh, So this is the information that I want to use to create the bank. Okay. Or let me just put this information taking the system date. Okay, so this is the information that I'm passing to the server. Let's see what happens. I kept a breakpoint there. Sorry. Um, do you guys know what has happened?
Uh, you have selected a get method.
Yeah, I mean, I did
That's the
not,
post method.
I mean, normally when you create a resource, you have to choose HTTP method post. For creating an entity, HTTP method post. Okay. So I'm going to use this one as a request. I'm going to remove the metadata. I'm just adding some dummy information here. Okay. I'm going to choose post, and in the URI you are just going to say banks because you don't know with what key it is going to create, right? So you just mention your entity set name. Whenever you are creating, you don't choose any key value or anything. Okay, you just give the entity set name in order to create. Okay, so let me copy this code. So if I want to use further, just use it. So if you see the information, the outer curly braces says that it is JSON object, and inside this D means the entire payload that you are sending to the OData service. Okay, so I'm going to just use the entity set name. Okay, and post. Let's see what happens. So it hit my breakpoint, but let's see all the input. What are all the input parameters? Entity name is bank, entity set name is banks, source name is bank since we originate the request from the same entity that we wanted to create. In the IT key tab it is empty. In the IO tech request context, let's say we don't see anything there. Okay, IO data provider. Actually in the IO data provider, this is where we request our information. Okay, this has a method which will I will show you a second. Okay, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Okay, let's go to the method where we want to implement it. So let's go to the create entity. This is where we receive our information IO underscore data provider. Okay, it is of type this one. If you go to this method, IWBEP slash this method, I mean, if you go to this interface, there is a method called read entry data. If you look at the parameters, you just receive the exporting parameter ES data. Okay, so this is the method. Okay, so I'm going to read this method in the interface. Okay, read IO. No, this is um, IO data provider. Okay, I'm going to use this method importing yes data equal to, I'm going to data less bank type ZLUI5 bank, because we know what kind of entity that we receive, right? Okay, so from the IO data provider object, by using this read underscore entry underscore data method, we are going to read the entity that have been passed from the user. Okay, okay, what we have done is um, we receive data in this object IO underscore data underscore provider. This interface has a method read underscore entry underscore data, and this will give us an entity. And I mean, this entity has all the information that is being received from the user. Okay, so let's see what kind of information we receive. I mean, this is just to verify whether we receive the data from user. Okay, so let me execute the same post method again. Okay, so let's see what the information in the ls bank holds, right? If you look at it, if you look at the structure, okay, if you look at the structure, this is the information that we passed. This is the bank key, this is the bank name, this is the street name, this is the city, this is the state, this is the country. So this is all the information that we passed. Once we get this information, we just validate it, and we are going to add a database record. We are going to insert into a table. Okay, that's what we are going to do. So whenever, I mean, you are coding, just look at what all the import parameters that has been provided by the framework, so you know which information is contained where. Okay, any questions, guys? Okay, let me go ahead and read it. Okay, if ls bank is not initial. If it is, I mean, if the user did not pass any information, then probably we are going to send a business exception saying that you got to provide bank information. Okay, and we have seen how to raise exception. Okay, but let's say if it is okay, and let's say if what we are going to do is we are just going to insert, I mean, we can keep normally, let's say you can keep all the validations here. In this case, it is a simple object. We just see whether it is initial. Probably you got to see whether the bank key exists with that key or not. If there is already a bank key with that information that you receive, you got to, I mean, probably you will send an error message saying that, oh, there is already bank with this information, so just change the key, something like that. So this is how, this is where, I mean, what you will do is before inserting into database, before inserting into BNK a table, need to do validations and send error messages if necessary. Okay. I'm not going detail into, I mean, what kind of validations and all. Normally, it depends on the business scenario that we have been working. Here, probably we might need to check whether there is already a bank existed with the same key information that user has passed. If there is bank information with the same key as user passed, probably we got to send an error message saying that, oh, there is a bank exists, so just send me some other information or send me different information. Okay. I'll just say insert BNKA from ls bank. Okay. Let's say I will check if psi sub rc equal to 0. I'm 0. I'm just going to send that entity back. Okay. Um, move ls bank to ER entity. Let's say if it is not 0, then we got to send an error message back saying to the user, hey, there is some problem with the creation of entity, right? So we know how to raise the exception. Raise exception. This is the exception type that we are going to raise. This is business exception. Okay. Export in text ID equal to, this exception class has a text ID called business error. That is the one that we are using. Okay. Nasir, and the message that we are going to send is there is problem creation of entity. I mean, based on the validation, you are just going to send a message explaining why you could not do that. Okay, I'm not going to go into details of. I mean, it basically depends on the business scenario that you have been working. Okay, so basically send something sensible so that the user can rectify the error and send the information back. Say that there is not enough information to create bank. Okay, let me do the syntax check. Okay, let me do data ls bnka type bnka. I'm going to move that information. ls bank to ls bnka. Okay, and we are going to create it from the, since we have used only um, some properties of the BNK table, it is complaining, so I'm going to check the syntax. Okay, it looks good. Okay, let me keep a breakpoint here so that, okay, let me execute the same information with post HTTP method. Okay, so basically this information is not initial because we have passed some information. Okay, so we'll see size about say it is 0. We are good. Okay, okay. So we receive the information that we have because we passed that information that we use it to create. Okay, let's just read it. Okay, that is just to assure that we have created that information. We have created that bank. This is the bank key that we have created. So let me change it to HTTP GET. Okay, let me add URI option format equal to JSON. Okay, this is the information that we have created. This is the routing number, this is the bank key, this is the bank name. So this is about create. Any questions, guys?
No.
Similarly, we are going to update. Okay. Uh, so whenever we do this example from UI5, we will talk about this CSRF token, which is going to prevent cross-site reference forgery. Okay, we will talk about when we discuss about the web part. Okay, So once we have, since we are done, we are going to move to update. Okay. So I have created this bank. Let me update this one. Okay. Okay. What is the corresponding method that we implemented? Banks, your entity set name. Okay. And create entity. Okay. Let me take out this information. Okay. Now for updating entity, right? What is the HTTP method that we use? We use HTTP method put. Okay. So since we read this information, we are going to use this as a request. Okay. We can enter, I mean, whenever we are updating it from the web, we are going to create a JSON object with all the information that we wanted to update. Okay. So we can even enter all the information, but for simplistic um, thing that we are just going to use the information that we get as a request, and I'm just going to update that information. Okay. I'm not going to change the key. I'll just say, okay, since it is moved from 44th Street to 42nd Street, I updated it. Okay. And um, I'll just say Lower Manhattan branch or something like that. Okay. I'm just going to change the routing number to, okay. So we know the corresponding method to implement for the updates. Okay, this is the so this is the method that we wanted to redefine. Okay, so you see the same information here: entity, entity set name, source name, IT key tab, IO underscore tech underscore request underscore context. This is where we receive our information. So since we know this object has a method called read entry data, it is the same thing again. We just read the information. If we have enough information, we are going to update that entity with the information that we receive. Okay. IO data. I mean, whenever you go to any method, just look at all the uh, import parameters and export parameters. So if you check all these, I mean, classes or interfaces, you find methods which can be used when you are dealing with these things. Okay. Okay, so we are going to do the same thing. Let's say if ls bank is not initial, else and if. Okay, I mean sending error messages back to the UI is crucial because at the back end we analyze or we validate and we can send proper error message back in order user to understand what is missing and so that he can rectify. Okay, so that's why I mean even when we are doing the simple entities, I'm just putting an extra effort to send the error messages back so that the user can see, and I mean we can up, we can correct the mean error. Okay, so if ls bank is not initial, I'm just going to move that to a update nka from ls what happened. Okay, okay, somehow it terminated. Okay, let me go there. Okay, bank is not initial. if size bar say equal to 0, okay, move ls bank to your entity, okay, else send an error message back saying that there is problem with creating bank information or updating bank information. Okay, raise type CX. Exporting text ID equal to business error. Okay, message equal to similarly send an error message if the user does not pass any information. Okay. Okay, so I read the information from the user input and I'm trying to update the bank information with the user information. If there is any problem, I'm going to send the error message back to the user. If there is no problem, I'm going to send the information, user information back as the entity. Okay, that is what it has been updated into the database. Okay, so let me update it. Okay, let me activate it. Okay, I missed. Okay, let me test it from the NetWeaver gateway client. Okay. So this is the service. Okay. So this is the bank that I'm reading. I'm requesting the information in the JSON format by adding the system query parameter format equal to JSON. I'm using the output information as a request. I use the response as a request. And in the response, I'm going to get rid of my metadata. I don't need it. And I'm changing some information here. Okay. I'm changing it to 42nd, 44th state to 42nd. I'm just changing the to Lower Manhattan, New York. Okay, I'm just going to just making some random changes. Okay, so you don't need this system query parameter format equal to JSON. You are telling here in the HTTP request header, you are saying to the service, I am providing you information in the JSON format. This is what the content type application slash JSON means. You are saying that you are providing information in the JSON format, and you are going to use the HTTP method put. Okay. In order to update an entity, you need to have a key of the entity which you are trying to update. Okay. That's why the URI is going to be this is the method banks underscore update entity. Okay. So let me keep a breakpoint here so that we can see. Okay. Okay. So you will read the information. Okay. So this ls underscore bank is not initial because we have passed some information. We are changing from 44th Street to 42nd Street, and we are changing the city, and we are changing the routing number. So we received all that information. So we are updating the bank, and since size of RC equal to 0, that means it is successful. So we just received that information. Okay, let's see whether we changed that bank or not. Okay, so I'm just going to read that information again in the JSON format to see whether it really updated or not. Okay, if you see, the street has been changed to 42nd Street, and the city has been changed to Lower Manhattan, and the routing number has been changed. Okay, so let me pass some, let me don't pass any information and see whether we receive error back or not. Okay, I'm just going to use it as a request. Okay, and just don't pass any information. Okay, and basically I'm just going to say put. Okay, it stopped here itself. Okay, let me just deliberately fail there. Okay, let me get the information. Let me get it in the JSON format. Okay, I'm going to use put. Okay, you got to take out this format equal to JSON because you are mentioning in the HTTP header, not in the URI. Okay, I'll just change in the debug size of RC equal to some 4 or something. Okay, function f6, it is just going to raise the error. Just say there is problem with updating bank. I mean, this is how the user receives error messages if there is any validation errors or if there is any problem with the business object that you are working on. So, I mean, they could just take this error message and display it in the UI5 view so that the user can have a chance to, I mean, rectify the error. Okay. Even you will see the HTTP response code as 400, which is does not start with 2, so it is problem. Okay. Any questions in this before we move on to delete? Okay. Since we created this, okay, let us talk about how to delete. Okay, we are going to use HTTP method delete. Okay. So let me just say delete. I mean, when you are deleting, you don't need to pass any information, right? You just got to pass the primary key for the record which you want to delete. Okay. So I'll just go here. Okay. I'm just going to redefine this method. So for deleting an entity, this is the method that you are going to redefine. Okay. And the URI is going to be, I mean, it is just the primary key, or you just got to specify an entity uniquely which you wanted to delete. So how do you uniquely identify a resource? By passing the primary key of that resource. Okay. So if you see here, it has entity set name, source name, but you don't see the data provider because we are not going to provide any data in the request body. We just send the key of the resource which we want to delete, right? Okay. So let me keep a breakpoint here. I'm not going to write any code. Okay. Let's see where you receive the key information with which you can delete. Okay. So we are going to use the HTTP method delete. So we are going to uniquely identify a resource by passing the key of that entity or resource. Okay. Let me execute it here. So if you see the information here, the entity name that you are going to delete is bank. The corresponding entity set name is banks, and the source where the request originated is bank. So the IT key tab is what keep the information in what will have the key name and key value. So once we read this table, we will have the key value of the key value of the entity which we wanted to delete. Okay, so it is the same as get entity. Okay, we'll just go here. We are going to So if you look at the IT key tab, it is of table type T underscore MGV underscore name underscore value underscore pair. If you look at the line type of the table, this is the line type. Okay, and if you see, it will has key value parameters. Okay, what is the name of the key, what is its value, what is the name of the key, and what is its value. So what I will do is I will simply read IT read table IT key scope tab data ls key tab type. This is the type. Okay, and into ls key tab. Okay, with key name equal to what is the key name of the entity, bank key. So this is the property, I mean this is the label of the key in the entity. Okay, so if ls key tab is not initial, okay, and if, okay, let's read bank information just to check. I mean before we delete, we want to check whether um, there is a bank with the information that user has passed, right? Okay, single star from BNKA into ls BNKA where bank L equal to ls underscore key underscore tab hyphen value. Okay, if you look at the structure, it just has a name and value, key name and key value, key name and key value. The key name here is bank key, and the value will have, I mean, whatever we have passed from the NetWeaver gateway client. Okay, so if ls BNK is not initial, if we find bank information with the key that user has passed, right, else we are going to send an error message saying that, hey, you don't have a bank information with the key that you have passed, right? If it is not initial, we're just going to say delete from BNKA where bank L equal to, okay, ls underscore key tab key ls underscore key tab underscore hyphen value. This is the value that we received from the user. Okay, if size sub rc equal to 0, if it is successful, we just don't do anything else. From the response code, the user knows whether it is a success or failure. Okay, and if we're going to send an error message back saying that there is problem with deletion of the bank. Okay, why is probably you create these error messages which I am hard coding here as text IDs, I mean in the class. So for reusability purpose and all, since we are explaining this stuff, I'm not going to get into the code standards and all, but when you are writing these classes, probably you have to stick to better coding standards. Okay. Similarly, if we don't find the bank in the database in the first place, we will send an error message saying that, hey, there is no bank with the information you passed. Okay. So what I have done is I simply read this IT underscore key tab with the key value bank key. If I have the value, I look at the BNK table whether there is any bank with the information user provided. If there is, we are trying to delete it. If it is successful, okay, otherwise we are going to send an error message. If the bank is not there in the first place, we are going to send an error message saying that, oh, there is no bank with the information you provided. Okay, let me keep a breakpoint here so that, okay. So I'm trying to delete the bank with key, I mean the one that we have added. We are using HTTP method delete. We are using the URI. Okay, let me just execute it. So what is the method that will be called? So based on what we sent here, the framework knows which method to be called when we mentioned delete and when we mentioned, I mean, this is the entity set, it knows which method should be called. Okay. So basically, if I use post, it knows which method will be called because based on, I mean, the correlation in the data provider class extension, the methods and the HTTP methods, there is a correlation between them. So basically, the framework knows which method will be called. Okay. So I read the data, so it knows this is the bank key. It checks whether there is a bank exists or not. Okay, since it exists, it, it just, okay, it is successful. Okay, we receive the value 204. Let's say after we have deleted this bank, let's execute one more time. I mean, let's see what happens. It should send an error message saying that
There is no bank.
yeah, okay, since this is initial, this is not initial, but there won't be any bank with the key. Okay, this is initial, so it just goes and raise an exception saying that hey, there is no. So this is how you do it. okay, you will see the response code, which is a bad request. Okay, so this is how you send the error messages back to the user. So today we have covered how to create an entity, how to update an entity, how to delete an entity, and we looked at various HTTP methods. I mean, for creation we use post, and the corresponding method will be called inside the data provider extension class is your entity set name underscore create underscore entity. For update, we use HTTP method put, and we use the URI, and I mean the corresponding HTTP, I mean the corresponding method in the data provider class extension called will be your entity set name underscore update underscore entity. For deletion, we have used HTTP method delete and the corresponding URI to uniquely identify an entity or resource, and the method which will be called in the data provider class extension will be banks underscore your entity set name underscore delete underscore entity. Okay, any questions?
Hey, Sudhir, for the error messages, we saw how to raise the exception, but there is no way we can send a success message, is it? I mean, only looking at the status code is how you identify.
Yeah, yep.
Hmm.
Let's
So
say,
looking at the
basically, just like we are sending the text messages, right? In
Hmm.
UI also, we create lot of text messages, okay, as part of the. There is a resource model. I mean, when we discuss about the UI5, we will talk about it. There
Hmm.
we can maintain all our messages, right? Let's say if the user creates it, we know what action he is doing, right?
Hmm.
So from there, you know what action user has committed. So we pick up the message from UI5 resources, the correct messages, and you display it.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Any
So
more?
in get entity method, get entity method, we always pass a key, right?
Yeah.
So for example, we pass a bank key.
Mm-hmm.
So for that particular bank key in the table, in BNK table, if there are two entries exist, I think it is going to return only one entry, right? Even though there are two entries exist with the same key.
Yeah, but the point of having key is we should not have duplicates, right?
Yes, yes, right.
Yeah,
I mean,
we are going to pick up the first one. Whenever we say select single star, it is going to pick the first one. But let's say if the table has two entries with the same key, it is violation of primary key itself, right?
yeah, right, right. I just want to confirm. That is the
Yeah,
standard
yeah,
behavior
yeah.
of.
In the get entity method, you can only send back to the user one entity.
Okay, fine.
If you look at the get entity method, there is only say,
ER entity. I mean, the exporting parameter is ER entity. That's a structure.
yeah, ER entity is of type TS underscore bank. It is structure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
if
it
you
is,
expect, so
yeah,
if you expect multiple entries to be returned, then we have to use the get entity set, right?
yep,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Um, yeah, in our business scenarios, probably, most of our entities won't be as simple as we talked about the banks. It is just a simple entity to demonstrate all the CRUD methods, okay? But our business objects are the entities that we are going to create or retrieve. It is not going to be as simple as we have discussed so far. to pick up this entity, it is just to demonstrate, all the operations, so that, instead of concentrating on the business more, we concentrated on the, how to, do different operations on the entities. When we go into detail about associations, navigation properties, we look at how to get sales order and sales order items at one read. Okay, so this is just to demonstrate how to do different kinds of actions, different kinds of create, read, update, delete, on an entity. Okay, when we go in detail, we will discuss more about how to create associationship between the entities, how to get the associations when you read an entity and all.